Welcome to the Images in International Relations workshop at the University of Sydney. The goal of this workshop was really just to take an opportunity to bring together some of this growing community of scholars working on images. I'd like to call this Image Palooza or Image Fest. It's wonderful to be able to get such a diverse but knowledgeable group of individuals all working on images into one space. There's been wide discussions of the visual turn in international relations, but really it's still quite a novelty to have a gathering of experts that can fill a room specifically working on issues related to the visual. Thank you all for attending today.
In some ways, trying to create a new media form that's easily disseminated by online, but also to help people up their game. So it doesn't become a hyper-reality, it doesn't become an alternative reality, but it becomes part of the process of understanding the content being shaped by the style, by the modes of production, by the means of transmission. It used to be you put a camera in front of somebody and they'd freeze up. Because it was such an alien kind of event. But now, so many people have both used cameras and been in front of cameras that people like to even reveal things they wouldn't. We shouldn't see the camera as an enemy, but as an ally in getting to the truth.
There's something about the way that images communicate that cannot fully be expressed through textual, spoken, discursive form of communication. There's a communicative utterance, if you like, that exceeds the linguistic expression. I don't think that theoretically, ontologically, there is an essence in the image. But it's something about the way in which at a particular point in time, in a particular culture, is the epistemic kind of value that we invest in images. And I want to also raise that because I think one of the things is the extent to which we're creating general theory. What are the kind of claims that we want to make about the level of kind of universality?
You said something which I was kind of struck by, that and it is an assumption that we all make that words can never completely capture what the images or the visual gives us. But I mean, if you take a Wittgensteinian and you're hardcore post-structuralists about this, what we cannot speak about, we should pass over in silence for Wittgenstein. So I wonder whether that assumption is right, whether images do have a content that escapes discourse. We might assume that, but I wonder how epistemologically you kind of demonstrate that.
What is impact? How do we measure it? And it started off with us with a frustration that the methods we are using just tell us limited things about impact. We found that in natural catastrophes, it doesn't matter what the image is. The image makes a difference. Whether it's masses of people, whether it's an individual victim, they seem to have the same effect. But that's different in other crises, and we've done quite a bit of research on refugees, where it makes a big difference. And individual refugees that you can visualize, people have empathy, whereas massive refugees at the border of Australia, so there's a geographic dimension too, are seen as threatening. They dehumanize, so to speak. Partly maybe because Ethiopia is a long way, we're not directly threatened, but refugees at the Australian border, it's a different issue. So I think that's precisely our point. We have to differentiate between the types of crises that are visualized, the context, the way it's embedded in verbal, oral, other kinds of elements, and we can't have this. And that's my big critique of the identifiable victim effect literature. It generalizes everything from generic victims, and you can't do that. I mean, you can derive some insights, but you can't make some grand narrative out of how a small group of people respond to certain types of surveys. And yet you want to keep some of these insights and link them up from the super micro to the macro and find a way of contextualizing that.
As we see it, the field really is incredibly diverse, and it not only spans research on images and photographs, but also on work that helps us to understand how humanitarian meanings have developed in particular contexts over time, and how it is that these meanings can resonate in collective emotional ways that help to mobilise the imperative of populations, governments and NGOs to respond.
I'm interested in a different kind of the use of visual politics, about using images to encourage receptivity, to encourage a rethinking or an understanding of the human role in the construction of human-non-human relationships. A number of local governments are getting beyond the critique around the politics of climate change by using imagery to engage citizens in discussion.
inherently questions of how we relate, engagement with images, and our attempts to understand the emotions that mobilize particular kinds of political engagement or personal engagement even. And I wondered whether that process of the relationship between being human and sensing as a form of communicative act, whether we can understand both the interiority and the exteriority of communication, I don't know. But I think that the relationship between those dimensions might move us towards thinking through the questions that Lena started with regard to the difference that the image brings into the conversation when we are attempting to delineate, whether there is something qualitatively different between the image as a communicative act versus the verbal.
I'm just trying to draw out a little bit your point about relational. So it's relational to what you're doing, to your emotional capacity, to the competition of other emotions that are going on that you might be experiencing. So there are going to be certain set of stimuli that are going to switch you off, which sort of funnel into your relational capacity, which all influences how you would answer the questions or how you would look at an image. And that's going to be part of your filter.
I'm sure all of you are very familiar with Evergrave, maybe less familiar with the Marine. There's not a lot of work that focuses specifically on the role of images for the internal culture, for internal soldier culture. My main argument is that we can look at the role of nudity, humiliation, violence, and abuse as kind of normalized practices are actually used to solidify soldier bonds and enhance military culture. So really, soldier-generated scandal images show consistencies with images that capture specifically hazing and initiation practices. So methodologically, that requires us to move beyond treating the image as a fixed representation of reality and acknowledging that images have very different potential meanings for specific groups of people.
I would just maybe step back a little bit from the effort to quantize, the effort to quantify, the effort to systemize, and get back to the interpretive, get back to the detective work that's necessary. Again, just, I'm a pluralist. I think that all these approaches can supplement each other, but I don't think one should dominate over the other.